I arrested a woman on a rainy Tuesday night. Less than an hour later, she destroyed my marriage. She did not scream the truth. She did not confess it with tears. She said one name. My husband's name. And she said it like she had whispered it in the dark. My name is Melanie Carter. I was 38 years old, and I had been a Chicago police officer for 11 years. I thought I understood lies. I thought I could hear them in a voice before a person finished speaking. That was the cruel part. I could spot danger in strangers. I just could not see it sleeping beside me. The call came in at 9:17 p.m. Domestic disturbance. Third floor apartment. Logan Square. Neighbors heard yelling, breaking glass, and a woman begging someone not to leave. My partner, Roy, drove through the rain with one hand on the wheel. The streets were slick, and the city lights looked smeared across the windshield. Another domestic, he said. I looked out at the wet sidewalks. No such thing as another domestic. He glanced at me and nodded. Roy knew I hated those calls. Not because they were boring. Because they were dangerous in quiet ways. People lied on those calls. People protected the ones hurting them. People smiled with blood in their mouths and said everything was fine. When we reached the building, the front door was already open. That was the first bad sign. We climbed the stairs slowly. A dog barked behind one door. A television played behind another. On the third floor, I saw a cracked wooden door at the end of the hallway. Apartment 3C. The door was open by 2 inches. Roy put his hand near his weapon. I knocked hard. Chicago police. No answer. I pushed the door wider. The apartment smelled like wine, burned food, and vanilla candles. A lamp was knocked over near the couch. Broken glass covered part of the floor. A plate had shattered near the kitchen, and red sauce was smeared across the tile like blood. A woman stood near the window. She wore a black dress, bare feet, and a furious face. Her mascara had run under both eyes. One hand gripped her phone so tightly her knuckles looked white. There was no man in the room. I didn't call you, she said. Her voice shook, but not with fear. With anger. I showed my badge. Ma'am, are you hurt? No. Is anyone else here? No. Roy moved toward the hallway and checked the bathroom, bedroom, and closet. I stayed with her. Her eyes never stayed still. They jumped from my badge to my face, then to the open door behind me. Like she expected someone to return. Or feared they already had. What's your name? I asked. Vanessa. Vanessa what? She swallowed. Miller. Her wrist had a red mark around it. Fresh. Finger-shaped. I had seen marks like that too many times to ignore them. What happened here, Vanessa? Nothing. I looked at the broken glass. That doesn't look like nothing. She laughed once, sharp and empty. We argued. That's all. With who? My boyfriend. His name. Her jaw tightened. It doesn't matter. I hated those words. People only said it doesn't matter when it mattered too much. Roy came back from the bedroom and gave me a look. Not alarm. Not yet. But something was wrong. I followed his eyes. On the kitchen floor, half hidden near the cabinet, was a man's watch. Steel case. Dark strap. Expensive. My stomach made a small strange turn. Brian had a watch like that. My husband had worn it to dinner 2 nights before. I stared at it for 1 second too long, then forced myself to look away. Chicago had millions of people. Plenty of men wore watches like that. I told myself that because I needed it to be true. Vanessa noticed me notice it. Her face changed. Just a flicker. But I saw it. Did your boyfriend leave that? I asked. She looked at the watch. Then back at me. No. Then whose is it? I don't know. Roy stepped closer. A neighbor said a man ran down the back stairs before we arrived. Vanessa's lips parted. She had not expected that. He didn't run, she said. So there was a man here? She shut her mouth. That was when everything shifted. The story stopped being a messy argument and became a lie with a missing man inside it. Outside, thunder rolled low over the street. Vanessa suddenly moved toward the kitchen counter, reaching for something near her purse. I caught her wrist before she touched it. Don't. She jerked back. Get your hands off me. Step away from the counter. You have no right. Step away. She shoved my arm. Not hard enough to hurt me. Hard enough to make a decision for me. Roy moved in. I turned her gently but firmly toward the wall and cuffed her while she cursed under her breath. She kept saying we were making a mistake. Then she looked over her shoulder at me. You really don't know, do you? She whispered. I paused. Know what? She smiled. It was small and ugly. Then she looked away. We brought her to the station for disorderly conduct and resisting. The whole ride, she barely spoke. She just watched me in the rearview mirror with those wet, angry eyes. At the station, I started the report. Name, time, address, condition of the apartment, witness statement, subject's behavior. I wrote like I always wrote. Clean, simple, facts only. Vanessa sat on the bench across from me, wrists cuffed in front now. Her makeup had dried on her cheeks. She looked tired, but not broken. Then she said, I need my phone call. After processing, I said, I need to call Bree. My pen stopped moving. Not Brian. Bree. The nickname caught me under the ribs. Nobody called my husband Bree. Nobody except me. I looked up slowly. Who? Vanessa froze. That was all it took. 1 second. One guilty second. Her face went pale, and she tried to pull the word back with a fake little laugh. My boyfriend, she said. What's his full name? She looked at my left hand. At my wedding ring. Then her eyes lifted to my badge. Carter. I watched her understand. And in that same moment, I understood too. She knew my husband. She knew my ring. She knew my last name. And now she knew I was the wife. I want a lawyer, she said. The room went quiet around me. The phones still rang. Officers still talked. Someone laughed near the coffee machine. But I heard none of it clearly. I only heard my own heartbeat. I thought about Brian's text from 2 hours earlier. Long day. Going to bed early. Love you. I thought about that watch on her kitchen floor. I thought about the missing man running down the back stairs before we arrived. Then I looked at Vanessa Miller. She was not scared of jail. She was scared of what I had just figured out. And the worst part was this. I had not figured out nearly enough yet. I did not question Vanessa after she asked for a lawyer. I knew the rules. But knowing the rules did not stop my hands from going cold. She sat across from me, quiet now, with her wrists cuffed in front. Her eyes kept moving to my wedding ring, then to my badge. Carter. She knew. And I knew she knew. Roy leaned over the report beside me. You okay? He asked. I forced my face to stay still. Yeah, just tired. It was the first lie I told that night. It would not be the last. I stepped into the hallway and pulled out my phone. Brian's last message was still there. Long day. Going to bed early. Love you. I stared at it until the words stopped looking normal. Then I called him. It rang 5 times. Voicemail. I called again. This time, it rang twice. Then he declined the call. My throat tightened. Not missed. Not asleep. Declined. I typed one message. Are you awake? Delivered. No answer. Behind me, the station moved like nothing had changed. Phones rang. Officers talked. Someone laughed near the coffee machine. But my whole life had gone silent. When I returned to the room, Vanessa looked up. Her face was pale now. The anger was gone. Something worse had replaced it. Fear. Not fear of jail. Fear of what had slipped out of her mouth. You shouldn't have come tonight, she whispered. I stopped beside the table. What does that mean? She pressed her lips together. Nothing. I leaned closer, keeping my voice low. You expected someone else? Her eyes filled. Then she gave a small, bitter laugh. I expected him not to run. My stomach dropped. There it was. A man had been there. He had run. And she had expected him to stay. I looked at the report in front of me. Suddenly, every line felt personal. Broken glass. Red mark on wrist. Male fled before arrival. This was not just an affair anymore. This was an incident. A police incident. And my husband might be the missing man inside it. Roy came closer. Carter? I straightened. Finish processing her, I said. My voice sounded calm. Too calm. I walked away before Vanessa could say anything else. At 12:48 a.m., my shift ended. I sat in my car outside the station, gripping the steering wheel. Rain crawled down the windshield in crooked lines. I checked my phone again. No message from Brian. I opened our location app. We had turned it on years ago for safety. Mine stayed active during shifts. His usually showed boring places. Home, office, grocery store, gym. Tonight, his location was unavailable. Not off. Unavailable. Like the phone had died. Or like someone had made sure I could not follow it. I drove home without turning on the radio. Every red light felt too long. Every street looked too empty. I kept telling myself there could be another explanation. Maybe Vanessa knew another Brie. Maybe the watch only looked like Brian's. Maybe he declined my call because he was half asleep. But every maybe sounded weaker than the one before it. When I reached our house, Brian's SUV was in the driveway. For 1 second, relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Then I noticed the hood. It was wet from the rain, but faint steam still lifted from the grill. The engine had been running recently. Very recently. I sat there staring at it. Going to bed early. Long day. Love you. The words came back like a slap. Inside, the house looked normal. Too normal. The kitchen was clean. The lamp in the living room was on. His shoes were near the stairs. One jacket hung over a chair. I stood in the hallway and listened. The shower was running upstairs. Brian almost never showered at night. Not after work. Not after falling asleep early. I climbed the stairs slowly. Our bedroom door was open. His side of the bed was messy, like he had climbed in and then gotten back out. His phone lay on the nightstand, plugged in, screen down. I touched it. The screen lit up. No missed calls. No text notifications. Nothing from me. My messages were gone from the lock screen. Then the bathroom door opened. Brian stepped out with a towel around his waist. His hair was wet. His face looked too awake for a man who had supposedly been sleeping. He froze when he saw me. Only for half a second. Then he smiled. Not his real smile. The other one. The one people use when they need time to build a lie. "Hey," he said. "I thought you were working late." I looked at him. Before I answered, the smell reached me. Not our soap. Not our laundry detergent. Vanilla candle smoke. Wine. And a soft perfume I did not own. "Rough night?" he asked. His voice was light. His eyes were not. I glanced toward the bathroom floor. His clothes were piled near the hamper. Dark jeans. Damp shirt. Socks. But his wrist was bare. Brian always wore his watch. Even at home. I looked at the dresser. The watch box was open. 3 watches sat inside. The 4th slot was empty. The steel one. The one with the dark strap. The one I had seen on Vanessa Miller's kitchen floor. Brian followed my eyes. And for the first time that night, he stopped pretending to smile. "What's wrong, Mel?" he asked. I looked back at him. I wanted to say her name. Vanessa. I wanted to watch his face break. But a colder part of me took over. The part trained to survive dangerous rooms. If I asked too soon, he would know what to hide. So I swallowed the scream in my throat. "Nothing," I said. "I'm tired." He stared at me. I stared back. And in that silence, I understood something worse than betrayal. Brian had not only been in her apartment. He had left evidence behind. And by morning, that evidence could drag my badge into his lie. I slept beside Brian that night with my eyes open. He turned away from me like nothing had happened. Like he had not come home smelling like another woman. Like his watch was not lying on Vanessa Miller's kitchen floor. Like my career was not about to become part of his affair. At 3:06 a.m. His phone buzzed. Once. Then again. He did not move. I stared at the nightstand. The screen was face down, but the glow spread across the wood. My chest tightened so hard it hurt. I should have left it alone. That is what a good wife would do. That is what a careful officer would do. But I was no longer just a wife. And this was no longer just cheating. I reached for the phone. Brian shifted behind me. I froze. His breathing stayed slow. I touched the screen. Locked. No preview. No name. Just one hidden notification. Then another message came in. This time, the screen lit long enough for me to see 2 words. She knows. My blood went cold. I put the phone back exactly where it had been. Same angle. Same distance from the charger. Then I lay down and stared at the ceiling until sunrise. By morning, I knew one thing clearly. Brian was not alone in this lie. Someone had warned him. Someone knew I had found out. And that meant Vanessa was only one piece of something larger. Brian came downstairs at 7:20, freshly shaved and wearing a gray sweater. He looked calm. Too calm. He kissed my cheek while I stood by the coffee maker. I did not move. You okay? He asked. Did you sleep? A little, I said. He poured coffee, avoiding my eyes. I'm sorry I was weird last night, he said. I was exhausted. I watched his hands. No watch. Where's your steel watch? I asked. His fingers stopped on the mug. Only for a second. Then he shrugged. Probably in my work bag. Which work bag? He looked up. My black one. The one in the closet? Yeah. I nodded slowly. He had just lied again. Because I had checked that bag before coming downstairs. It was empty. Brian took a sip of coffee. You're asking strange questions, Mel. And you're giving strange answers. His face hardened. Not much. But enough. What is that supposed to mean? I almost said it. I almost threw Vanessa's name between us like a knife. But then I remembered the message. She knows. If I pushed him now, he would clean everything. Delete everything. Call everyone. Hide whatever was left. So I smiled. A small, tired smile. It means I had a bad night. His shoulders relaxed. Just a little. He wanted to believe I was only tired. So I let him. After he left for work, I waited 10 minutes. Then I searched the house. Not like a wife looking for lipstick on a collar. Like an officer looking for evidence. I checked his work bag again. Empty. I checked the laundry. One damp shirt. One pair of dark jeans. The shirt smelled faintly of smoke and perfume. In the jeans pocket, I found a folded gas station receipt. Western Avenue. 9:31 p.m. Last night. That station was 5 minutes from Vanessa's building. I photographed it and put it back. Then I opened the hallway closet. My department jacket was hanging there. I almost did not touch it. Something inside me already knew. The cuff was damp. The fabric smelled like rain. And vanilla. I reached into the right pocket. Nothing. Left pocket. A parking ticket. 2 weeks old. Issued near Logan Square. But not to Brian's SUV. To a gray Honda Accord. I stared at the plate number until my eyes burned. I did not know that car. So I took a photo. Then I put the ticket back exactly where I found it. My phone buzzed. Roy. I answered before the second ring. Where are you? He asked. Home. You need to come in. My stomach sank. Why? Vanessa filed a complaint. I closed my eyes. What kind? She says you knew Brian was involved before you arrested her. That's a lie. I know. No, I said quietly. You believe me. That's different. Roy did not answer. That silence hurt, because it was honest. Alvarez wants to talk, he said. Internal affairs? Not yet. Not yet. 2 words with teeth. I changed clothes and drove to the station. Every mile felt like I was heading toward an accident I could already see. Sergeant Alvarez waited in conference room 2. A folder sat in front of him. He did not offer coffee. He did not ask how I was. That told me enough. Carter, he said, do you know Vanessa Miller? No. Did you know your husband knew her? No. When did you first suspect a connection? I kept my voice steady. At the station. She used a nickname for him. What nickname? Bree. His pen moved across the page. And before that? I hesitated. That was a mistake. Alvarez looked up. What did you see before that? A watch at the scene, I said. It looked like one Brian owns. Did you disclose that? No. Why? Because I wanted to be wrong. Because my marriage cracked open in front of a suspect. Because for 1 minute, I forgot how fast silence can become guilt. I should have, I said. Alvarez leaned back. Vanessa's attorney brought photos. My throat tightened. Photos of what? Your husband entering her building on several dates. The room tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the chair. And last night, he opened the folder but did not turn it toward me. One photo shows Brian leaving through the back entrance at 9:14 p.m. 3 minutes before the call. 3 minutes before dispatch sent us there. 3 minutes before I walked into the apartment and found his watch. Alvarez's voice lowered. There is something else. I looked at him. In one photo, Brian appears to be wearing a Chicago police jacket. My mouth went dry. My jacket? We cannot confirm that yet. But I could. The damp cuff. The vanilla smell. The parking ticket in the pocket. I suddenly understood why Vanessa had looked at my badge. Why she said I should not have come. Why Brian's phone had received that message. This was not only an affair. Someone had used my name, my marriage, and maybe my uniform. Alvarez closed the folder. Until further notice, you are not to access this case. No reports. No footage. No contact with Vanessa Miller. I nodded, but my mind was already racing. If I could not touch the case officially, I had one option left. I had to find out what Brian was hiding before the department did. When I left the conference room, Roy was waiting near the hallway. His face was pale. What? I asked. He stepped closer and lowered his voice. I heard Alvarez on the phone. With who? Internal Affairs. My stomach dropped. Roy looked down the hall, then back at me. They're not just asking about Brian anymore. I could barely breathe. Then who? He swallowed. You. Roy's words stayed in my head. They're asking about you. Not Brian. Not Vanessa. Me. I stood in the station hallway, feeling every camera above me. Every door. Every badge. For 11 years, this building had felt like a second home. Now it felt like a room full of witnesses. What exactly did you hear? I asked. Roy lowered his voice. Alvarez said they're reviewing whether you had prior knowledge. That's insane. I know. But his face said something worse. He did not know. Not fully. No one could. Because the evidence was ugly. I had responded to the call. I had seen the watch. I had heard the nickname. I had not reported the connection immediately. And now Brian had been photographed wearing what looked like police gear. My police gear. I swallowed hard. Did they mention my jacket? Roy nodded once. They're trying to verify it. My stomach dropped. Because I had already verified it. The damp sleeve. The vanilla smell. The parking ticket. Brian had worn my jacket to Vanessa's building. And somehow, I was the one becoming the suspect. I left the station without talking to anyone else. The second I got into my car, I locked the doors and called Brian. This time, he answered on the first ring. Mel? His voice was careful. Too careful. Where are you? I asked. At work. Which client? Silence. Small. Deadly. Why? Answer the question. He sighed, like I was being unreasonable. Melanie, I don't know what's going on with you. That tone made something snap inside me. The soft husband voice. The tired husband voice. The voice he used to make me feel dramatic. I know about Vanessa, I said. Nothing. Not a breath. Not a question. Not even a fake laugh. Then he said, who told you? My whole body went cold. Not what are you talking about? Not who is Vanessa. Who told you? That was the confession. I gripped the steering wheel. You just did. He cursed under his breath. Then his voice changed. Lower. Harder. You need to stop digging. I almost laughed because it hurt so much. Digging? Brian, you were in another woman's apartment. You don't understand. Then explain it. I can't. You mean you won't? No, he said. I mean I can't. Not over the phone. I looked toward the station doors. Officers walked in and out like my life was not collapsing in the parking lot. Were you wearing my department jacket? Silence again. This one lasted longer. Brian. I borrowed it. For what? It was raining. I closed my eyes. You used my police jacket because it was raining? I said I borrowed it. And the parking ticket? His breathing changed. That was when I knew he had not expected me to find it. What parking ticket? He asked. Too late. Too smooth. I started the car. Come home. No. That single word hit me harder than I expected. No, I'm telling you this because I still care about you, he said. Do not go back to Vanessa's building. Do not talk to anyone from that case. And do not trust Roy. My eyes opened. What did you just say? Roy is not your friend in this. You don't get to talk about my partner. I'm trying to protect you. That sentence almost made me scream. Men like Brian always called control protection when they were losing control. From what? He hesitated. Then he said, from what Vanessa is going to say next. The line went dead. I called back. Straight to voicemail. My hands were shaking now. Not from heartbreak. From fear. Because Brian was not acting like a man caught cheating. He was acting like a man caught in something larger. And he believed Vanessa had more to say. I drove home fast. Too fast. The first thing I did was check the hallway closet. My jacket was gone. I stood there staring at the empty hanger. For a moment, I could not move. Then I ran upstairs. Brian's watch box was closed now. I opened it. The empty slot was still empty. His work bag was gone too. So was the damp shirt from the laundry. The jeans. The receipt. Everything I had photographed was now missing. Brian had come back while I was at the station. He had cleaned the house. But he had not cleaned everything. Because he did not know about the ticket photo on my phone. And he did not know I had copied the plate number into my notebook. Gray Honda Accord. I sat on the edge of the bed and searched my memory. Where had I seen that car? Not at home. Not at the station. Then it hit me. 2 months earlier. Department Charity Barbecue. A gray Honda parked near the back fence. A woman standing beside it, laughing with Brian while I helped Roy's wife carry drinks. I had not thought anything of it. Brian talked to everyone. But now I remembered the woman's red nails. Wine-colored. Vanessa. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. No one spoke at first. Only breathing. Then a woman's voice whispered, "You need to listen carefully." Vanessa. I stood up. How did you get this number? Brian gave it to me months ago. My mouth went dry. Why? In case something happened to him. A cold line moved down my back. What does that mean? He told me you were dangerous. For a second, I could not speak. What? He said you were unstable. Jealous. That you used your badge to scare people. I almost dropped the phone. Brian had not only cheated. He had prepared a story about me. A version of me that made him look like the victim. Why are you calling? I asked. Vanessa breathed shakily. Because he lied to me too. I said nothing. He told me he was separated, she continued. He said you knew. He said the marriage was over except for paperwork. My chest hurt, but I forced myself to stay focused. Why did you file the complaint? Because my attorney told me to protect myself. From me? From him. That answer stopped me. Vanessa started crying, but quietly. Like she was trying not to be heard. There was more than an affair, she said. Brian used my apartment for meetings. What meetings? I don't know. Men came by. Sometimes late. Sometimes with envelopes. I asked him once, and he said it was security consulting. My pulse kicked hard. Envelopes. Late meetings. My jacket. A missing watch at a domestic scene. What was in the envelopes? I asked. I never opened them. Vanessa. I swear. Then her voice dropped even lower. But I saw cash once. A lot of it. I walked to the bedroom door and looked down the hallway. The house suddenly felt unsafe. Where are you now? I asked. I'm not telling you. Then why call me? Because Brian came to my apartment this morning. My grip tightened. What? He wanted the watch. He wanted my phone. He said if I talked, he would make sure everyone believed I attacked him. Then he said you would lose your badge before he lost anything. I felt sick. That sounded like Brian. Not the man I married. The man underneath him. What do you want from me? I asked. Vanessa was silent for a moment. Then she said, there's a storage unit. My breath stopped. What storage unit? He kept a key behind the loose brick by my back entrance. I saw him hide it twice. Where? She gave me the address. Not far from Logan Square. Then she added, Melanie, don't go alone. The way she said my name scared me. Not because she knew it. Because she sounded sorry. Why? I asked. Her voice broke. Because last night, before you arrived, Brian wasn't running from me. I held the phone tighter. Then who is he running from? Vanessa whispered one sentence. And everything inside me went still. He was running from another cop. He was running from another cop. For a moment, I forgot where I was. I stood in my own bedroom, holding my phone, staring at the hallway like someone might already be standing there. Another cop. Not a jealous woman. Not a random client. Not some angry boyfriend. A cop. Who? I asked. Vanessa was crying harder now. I don't know his name. Think. I never saw his face clearly. He wore a dark hoodie. But Brian called him by something. What? She breathed into the phone. Duke. The name hit me like cold water. Duke was not a real name. It was a nickname. And I knew exactly one officer people called Duke. Detective Mark Dugan. Narcotics. Older than me by 10 years. Loud laugh. Expensive shoes. Too friendly with everyone. The kind of cop who always knew which bar was open late and which supervisor could be convinced to look away. I had never liked him. But I had never feared him. Until that second. Melanie. Vanessa whispered. I forced myself to answer. Don't call me again from this number. What? Get a new phone. Stay somewhere Brian won't guess. You think he'll come back? I think he already has. I ended the call before she could panic more. Then I stood there with my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. Brian knew Dugan. Of course he did. Security consulting crossed paths with cops all the time. Retired cops. Active cops. Private details. Cash jobs. Favors that looked harmless until they weren't. But if Dugan was involved, this was no longer just Brian's lie. This was corruption. And I was already standing inside the trap. I took my notebook, my personal phone, and the photos I had saved. Then I did something I should have done the night before. I packed a small bag, 2 shirts, jeans, medication, passport, cash from the back of my jewelry drawer. My hands shook while I zipped it. Not because I was leaving Brian. Because part of me still could not believe I had to. The front door opened downstairs. I froze. No footsteps came at first. Then Brian called my name. Mel? His voice was calm. Too calm. I moved quietly to the bedroom door and looked down the hall. I could not see him, but I heard him set keys on the table. Melanie, I know you're here. I put the phone on silent. Then I slipped into the closet. It was a stupid hiding place. Maybe, but I needed 10 seconds. Brian came upstairs slowly. Not like a man coming home. Like a man searching. His steps stopped outside the bedroom. Mel, we need to talk. I held my breath. He entered the room. I could see him through the narrow crack between the closet doors. He wore a black jacket and dark jeans. His face looked tired, but not sorry. He went straight to the nightstand. Then the dresser. Then my side drawer. He was not looking for me first. He was looking for what I had found. That told me everything. He opened the drawer where I used to keep old birthday cards and spare charging cables. Then he pulled out my notebook. My stomach dropped. I had taken the wrong one. The one in my bag was an old training notebook. The real one was in his hand. Brian flipped it open. His face changed. He read the plate number. The gas station receipt. Vanessa's name. Dugan's nickname. Then he closed his eyes. Damn it, Mel. Not guilt. Annoyance. Like I had made his life harder by discovering the truth. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Yeah, he said quietly. She knows about the unit. My blood turned cold. The unit. Vanessa had not tricked me. It was real. Brian listened for a moment, then said no. I'll handle her. Handle her. Those 2 words moved through me like a blade. He ended the call and walked toward the closet. I did not think. I moved. The closet door slammed open into his shoulder. He cursed and stumbled back. I pushed past him and ran down the hall with my bag half open in my hand. Melanie, he shouted. I hit the stairs too fast. My foot slipped on the 3rd step. Pain shot through my ankle, but I caught the railing and kept going. Brian grabbed my arm near the front door. Not hard enough to bruise. Hard enough to remind me he could. Stop, he said. I turned and looked at his hand. For 1 second, he looked like the man from Vanessa's apartment. The missing man. The man who left marks on wrists. Let go of me, I said. He released me slowly. But his eyes were flat now. I'm trying to save you. No, I said. You're trying to save yourself. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're walking into. I'm starting to. Then listen to me. Dugan isn't someone you can expose with a notebook and feelings. There it was. The confirmation. He had said the name himself. I stepped back. You're working with him. Brian laughed once, bitter and ugly. You think I had a choice? Everyone has a choice. That's easy to say when you don't owe dangerous people money. The words landed hard. Money. Finally, the missing piece showed its face. How much? I asked. He looked away. How much, Brian? More than I could pay back. My chest tightened. All those work trips? He said nothing. The late nights? Nothing. The consulting jobs? His silence answered. I felt something inside me break cleanly. Not loudly. Cleanly. You used my jacket, I said. You used my name. I only needed them to trust me. Who? He looked toward the window. And that was when I saw headlights sweep across the living room wall. A car had pulled up outside. Not one. Two. Brian's face changed. Fear. Real fear. Mel, he whispered. You need to leave through the back. I stared at him. A second ago, he had been trying to stop me. Now he wanted me gone. A knock hit the front door. Slow. Heavy. 3 times. Brian did not move. Another knock. Then a man's voice called through the door. Carter. Open up. Not Brian Carter. Me. Officer Carter. I knew that voice. Detective Dugan was standing on my porch. And Brian, for the first time since this nightmare began, looked more scared than I was. Dugan knocked again. 3 slow hits. Brian stared at the door like it had a gun pointed at him. Back door, he whispered. I did not move. He looked at me, desperate now. Melanie, please. That scared me more than the knock. Brian had lied. Cheated. Used my jacket. Dragged my name into something dirty. But now he was begging. Not for himself. For me. Another knock hit the door. Carter, Dugan called. I know she's in there. My hand tightened around the strap of my bag. Brian grabbed my keys from the table and shoved them toward me. Go through the alley. Don't take your car. Why? Because they'll follow it. They. Not he. They. That one word opened the floor under me. I moved. The kitchen felt too bright as I crossed it. Too normal. Coffee mug in the sink. Mail on the counter. A grocery list stuck to the fridge with a magnet from our honeymoon. Eggs. Detergent. Tomatoes. My life had become evidence, and the fridge still wanted tomatoes. I unlocked the back door as quietly as I could. Behind me, Brian opened the front door. Duke, he said, his voice forced calm. Where is she? She's not here. I stepped onto the back porch and froze. A black sedan sat at the end of the alley. Engine running. Lights off. Someone was inside. I backed up against the brick wall, holding my breath. Inside the house, Dugan's voice dropped. Don't lie to me. Her car is outside. She walked. At midnight in the rain? You know Melanie. A laugh. Low. Mean. No, Brian. I know cops. And your wife is still acting like one. I slid down the porch steps and crouched behind the trash bins. The alley smelled like wet concrete and old cardboard. My ankle throbbed from the stairs, but I forced myself not to limp. The sedan door opened. A man stepped out. Not Dugan. Younger. Thick shoulders. Dark hoodie. I could not see his face. He looked toward our back gate. I ducked lower. My phone was in my hand. I hit record. Not a call. Not a message. Just record. The man at the alley took 2 steps toward the house. Then Dugan shouted from inside. Tell her the unit gets cleaned tonight. My skin went cold. Brian said something I could not hear. Dugan answered louder. No. She already has the plate. She already talked to the girl. The girl. Vanessa. I pressed the phone tighter. She talks to internal affairs, Dugan said, and your wife becomes the story. Not us. My breath shook. That was the plan. Not to hide Brian's affair. To bury me under it. The man in the alley got closer. I crawled behind the neighbor's fence, one knee in the mud. My bag scraped against the wood. The sound was tiny, but in that moment it felt like a gunshot. The man stopped. I stopped breathing. For 3 seconds, everything was still. Then a dog barked 2 yards over. The man turned his head. I ran. Not fast. Not clean. My ankles screamed with every step. I cut through the neighbor's side gate, crossed a wet lawn, and slipped between 2 garages. Behind me, someone yelled. I did not look back. I kept running until my lungs burned. 2 blocks later, I hid behind a closed laundromat and finally checked my phone. The recording was there. 27 seconds. Dugan's voice. The unit. The girl. The threat. Not enough to end everything. Enough to stay alive. I called Roy. My thumb hovered over his name for a full second. Brian's warning came back. Do not trust Roy. But Brian had used truth and lies together all night. That was what made him dangerous. The warning could be real. Or it could be poison. Roy answered fast. Melanie, are you alone? Yes. Prove it. He went silent. Then he said, your first week with me, you threw up after a child neglect call. You told everyone it was bad tacos. It wasn't. My eyes burned. Only Roy knew that. I need help, I said. Where are you? I almost told him. Then I saw headlights turn at the far end of the street. Slow. Searching. I can't say. Good, Roy said. Don't. Not on this line. My heart kicked. You think my phone is tapped? I think Dugan has friends. This was the moment when my mind finally said it. This is insane. Not dramatic insane. Real insane. A Chicago detective was on my porch. My husband was tied to cash drops. A woman I arrested had become my only witness. And I was hiding behind a laundromat, afraid to trust my own department. What do I do? I asked. Do you still have the plate number? Yes. Text it to no one. Write it again on paper. Then turn your phone off for 5 minutes. Why? Because I'm going to give you a place to meet, and I don't want them seeing you move. I heard traffic behind him. You said you were alone. I am. I'm driving. Where? To get Vanessa. I froze. You found her. She called the station asking for you. Alvarez picked up. He didn't transfer it. I heard enough. My stomach tightened. Is Alvarez involved? I don't think so. But he's scared. That makes him slow. And you? Roy exhaled. I'm scared too. That makes me careful. For some reason, that answer felt honest. He gave me an address. An old church parking lot near Humboldt Park. No cameras near the back. 2 exits. Bad lighting. The kind of place cops noticed because it was useful for all the wrong reasons. I turned my phone off, counted 5 minutes by the shaking in my hands, then moved. I stayed off main streets. I cut through alleys, crossed behind a gas station, and walked with my hood low. Twice, I thought I saw the black sedan. Twice, I ducked behind parked cars until it passed. By the time I reached the church, my ankle had swollen against my boot. Roy's truck was there. So was a gray Honda Accord. My chest tightened. Vanessa sat in the passenger seat. Her face was bruised near the cheekbone now. Fresh. She looked at me through the windshield, and for the first time, there was no hate in her eyes. Only fear. Roy stepped out. Get in, he said. I looked around. Where are we going? Vanessa opened the car door and held up a small brass key. To the storage unit, she said. Her voice shook. But there's something you need to know first. I climbed into the back seat. Roy started the engine. Vanessa turned toward me, tears shining under the streetlight. Brian didn't just store cash there, she whispered. I felt the car begin to move. What else? She looked at Roy, then back at me. Files. My mouth went dry. What kind of files? Vanessa swallowed. Police files. With your name on the first one. Police files, Vanessa said. With your name on the first one. Nobody spoke after that. Roy drove with both hands on the wheel. Vanessa stared out the windshield, holding the brass key so tight her fingers shook. I sat in the back seat, trying to understand how my name had ended up inside Brian's storage unit. Not our marriage license. Not bank papers. Police files. Explain, I said. Vanessa wiped her cheek. I only saw them once. Brian left the box open. I thought it was money again. But there were folders. What did my file say? She looked at me in the rearview mirror. I didn't read all of it. Vanessa. Her voice cracked. It had your schedule. Your old addresses. Your partner's name. Photos of you leaving the station. Roy glanced at me. His face went hard. That's surveillance, he said. My stomach turned. Brian had not just lied to me. He had studied me. Or someone had studied me through him. What else? I asked. There were names of other officers, Vanessa said. Some had red marks. Some had dollar amounts. Roy cursed under his breath. The city lights slid over his face as we drove through wet streets. Every passing car made me tense. Every pair of headlights looked like a threat. The storage place sat behind a closed auto shop. Rows of blue metal doors stretched into the dark. A broken sign flickered near the entrance. Vanessa gave Roy the gate code, and he punched it in with his sleeve covering his fingers. The gate opened slowly. Too loudly. Roy parked 2 rows from the unit. No phones, he said. I nodded. Mine was already off. Vanessa's hands shook so badly she dropped the key once before opening the lock. The metal door rattled upward, and the smell hit first. Dust. Cardboard. Cold plastic. And something sharp underneath. Like old gun oil. Roy pulled out a small flashlight. Inside, the unit looked almost empty. 2 plastic bins. A folding chair. A black duffel bag. And 3 cardboard boxes stacked near the back. That's it, I whispered. Vanessa nodded. He said less looked safer. Roy moved first. He checked corners under the chair, behind the boxes. Then he opened the duffel. Cash. Bundles of it. Wrapped in rubber bands. Not thousands. More. A lot more. Vanessa covered her mouth. I told you. Roy did not touch it. Photograph with my burner, he said. No flash. He handed me a cheap prepaid phone. I took pictures fast. Then I opened the first box. Inside were folders. Police names. Case numbers. Internal complaints. Disciplinary notes. Some were public. Some were not. Some should never have been outside the department. Roy opened a folder and went still. What? I asked. He turned it toward me. His own name was on the tab. Roy Bennett. Inside were photos of him with his daughters. Their school. His home address. His wife's car. Roy's face drained of color. They were watching my kids, he said. His voice was barely there. Vanessa started crying again. I didn't know. Roy closed the folder slowly. I found mine next. Melanie Carter. My hands did not feel like hands anymore. Inside were photos of me in uniform. Photos of me at the grocery store. Photos of me walking into my house. Copies of my schedule. Notes about my marriage. Notes about my father's illness. Notes about my mortgage. Then one sentence written in red ink. Pressure point, husband. I stopped breathing. Brian was not just involved. Brian was chosen. Because of me. Because he could get close. Because he could borrow my jacket, use my name, enter rooms no stranger could touch. I turned the page. There was a printed message chain. Brian and Dugan. Only pieces. Enough to understand. She won't suspect me. Need access to her gear. Use her badge story if things go bad. My vision blurred. For a second, I was not in the storage unit. I was back in my kitchen. Brian kissing my cheek. Brian saying love you. Brian asking if we were okay. And all that time, he had been handing pieces of me to men who wanted control. Roy touched my arm. Melanie. I looked up. He was holding another folder. This one had no name. Just a date. Last night. Inside were printed photos. Brian leaving Vanessa's building. My jacket on his back. His hood up. And behind him, half hidden near the alley, stood Detective Dugan. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the final photo. Dugan handing Brian a small evidence bag. Inside was a watch. Brian's watch. The one I had seen on Vanessa's floor. Roy whispered, They planted the timeline. Vanessa looked confused. I was not. They wanted me to find it, I said. My voice sounded dead. They wanted me to connect Brian to her. Roy nodded slowly, and then looked unstable when he reacted. My stomach twisted. The affair was real. The betrayal was real. But the call, the watch, the complaint, the jacket, all of it had been arranged. A trap with my marriage as bait. Vanessa stepped back. I didn't know he was using me too. I looked at her. For the first time, I believed her completely. Then a noise came from outside. A car door. All three of us froze. Roy killed the flashlight. Darkness swallowed the unit. Another car door opened. Then footsteps. Slow. 2 people. Maybe 3. Roy leaned close to my ear. Back wall, he whispered. There's no exit, Vanessa breathed. Roy reached behind the folding chair and pulled at the metal panel. It shifted. A gap opened near the floor. Maintenance crawl space, he whispered. Move. Vanessa went first. Then me. Roy shoved the burner phone into my hand. Take the files. What about you? Move. I grabbed my folder, Roy's folder, and the folder from last night. Vanessa crawled ahead, sobbing quietly. Metal scraped behind us as Roy pulled the panel back into place. Through the thin wall, I heard the storage door roll higher. Then Dugan's voice. Too late. My blood froze. Roy said nothing. A hard thud followed. Then another. Vanessa clamped a hand over her mouth. I gripped the folders against my chest and crawled forward in the dark. Dust filled my throat. My ankle burned. Behind us, Roy made a sound I had never heard from him before. Pain. Then Dugan spoke again. Where is she, Bennett? Silence. Another hit. I wanted to turn back. Every part of me wanted to. But Roy had daughters. I had his file. And if I stopped now, Dugan would bury all of us. Vanessa pulled me through the end of the crawl space into a narrow alley behind the units. Rain fell hard again. She was shaking so badly she could barely stand. We have to help him, she whispered. We will, I said. But my voice broke. Then the burner phone buzzed in my hand. One message. No name. Just a photo. Roy on his knees inside the storage unit. Dugan standing over him. And under the photo, one sentence. Bring the files or your partner dies first. The photo stole the air from my lungs. Roy was on his knees. Blood ran from his eyebrow. Dugan stood above him with one hand in his jacket pocket, smiling like this was all just a bad joke between cops. Under the photo were 7 words. Bring the files or your partner dies first. Vanessa read it over my shoulder and started shaking. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God. I wanted to run back. Every instinct in me screamed to turn around, give Dugan the folders, save Roy, fix one thing in a night where everything had shattered. But then I looked at the files in my hands. My file. Roy's file. The photo of Brian in my jacket. The messages. The cash. The names. If I gave them back, Roy might still die. Vanessa might disappear. And I would become the dirty cop they had already written me to be. I forced myself to breathe. Not as a wife. Not as a betrayed woman. As an officer. Give me your phone, I said. Vanessa blinked. What? Your phone. Now. She handed it over with trembling fingers. I opened the camera and recorded the files in the rain. Every page. Every photo. Every message. I said the date, the time, the location, and my name clearly. Then I turned the camera toward myself. My name is Officer Melanie Carter. If this video is found, Detective Mark Dugan is involved in police corruption, intimidation, and evidence tampering. My husband, Brian Carter, helped him. Officer Roy Bennett is being held inside the storage unit behind me. Vanessa stared at me like I had lost my mind. Maybe I had, but fear had done something useful. It had burned away every last piece of denial. I sent the video to Sergeant Alvarez, then to Roy's wife. Then to a number I never thought I would use. Federal contact. A task force investigator I had met years earlier during a joint case. I added one message. Officer down. Corruption evidence. Storage units off Logan. Come now. Then I turned Vanessa's phone off. 30 seconds later, my burner buzzed again. Another message. 5 minutes. I looked toward the storage row. Rain hit the metal roofs like static. We need to keep him talking, I said. Vanessa shook her head. He'll kill us. He might, I said. But he wants the files first. We walked back toward the unit. Not fast. Not slow. Every step felt like walking into my own grave. Dugan stood outside now. Roy was behind him, sitting against the storage wall, face bloody but eyes open. Brian stood near the door. When he saw me, something broke across his face. Relief. Fear. Guilt. All of it arrived too late. Mel, he said. Give him the files. I looked at my husband. The man I had loved. The man I had trusted. The man who had helped strangers build a weapon out of my life. You chose them, I said. His eyes filled. I owed money. So you sold me? He flinched. Dugan laughed. Touching. Really. But I'm done listening. He stepped closer. Files. I held them tighter. You planted the watch. His smile faded. You don't know what you're talking about. You used Brian. Used Vanessa. Used my jacket. Then you built a complaint to make me look unstable. Dugan's eyes narrowed. Behind him, Roy moved slightly. Still alive. Still watching. You think anyone will believe you? Dugan asked. For a while, maybe not. His face changed. That was the first time he understood. A distant siren cut through the rain. Then another. Then blue lights flashed against the storage doors. Dugan turned. Roy moved at the same time. He drove his shoulder into Dugan's knees. Dugan fell hard. Brian lunged toward me, but Vanessa grabbed the loose metal lock and swung it with both hands. It hit his shoulder with a dull crack. He shouted and dropped to one knee. I ran to Roy. His face was pale. You sent it, he asked. To everyone. He gave one weak nod. Good. Within seconds, the place flooded with uniforms. Then internal affairs. Then federal agents in dark jackets. Dugan shouted first. Then threatened. Then went silent when they cuffed him. Brian did not fight. He just looked at me through the rain, like he was waiting for me to save him. That was the old trick. The final one. Make me feel responsible for the damage he caused. This time, I did not move. Weeks passed before I slept through a full night. The investigation spread wider than anyone expected. Dugan had been selling access, burying complaints, protecting dirty private security jobs, and using desperate people as tools. Brian had been one of them. But not an innocent one. He cooperated later. Only after he was charged. Only after the evidence made denial useless. Vanessa testified too. She was not clean. She had lied. She had protected him. But she had also helped us open the door he wanted locked forever. Roy recovered. He still has the scar above his eyebrow. He jokes about it now, but only when his daughters are not nearby. As for me, I kept my badge. Barely. There were hearings. Questions. Suspicion. Long rooms where people asked why I had not reported the connection sooner. I told the truth. I had wanted to be wrong. That answer did not make me look perfect. But it made me human. Brian signed the divorce papers 6 months later. He wrote me one letter from county jail. I never opened it. Some people think closure comes from answers. I learned it sometimes comes from refusing one more lie. Now, when I train younger officers, I tell them domestic calls are never small. I tell them evidence can look personal. I tell them love can blind smart people, even trained people, even people who spend their lives reading danger. But I never tell the whole story. Not all of it. Because some nights still belong only to me. The rain. The watch. The nickname. The moment I realized the woman I arrested was not the real threat. She was only the door. And behind that door was the man I had trusted most. Thank you for listening to this story until the end. If it touched you, support the channel by subscribing and leaving a like. It really helps me release new stories more often. And write in the comments, could you forgive someone who used your trust against you?